Welcome. I'm so excited to have a special guest with us today. We have Dr. Brian Stenzler coming to us from Florida. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes, I'm excited to have you because this is such a great topic. So do you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your introduction, who you are, and we'll dive in.
Yeah, for sure. So as you just mentioned, I recently moved to Florida from San Diego. I lived in San Diego for 15 years. And prior to that, I was in New York, born and raised in New York. So in the 15 years I was in San Diego, I never lost that accent. And now being back on the East Coast, it's coming out again even more. Can't get rid of that. But I was a pediatric and family wellness chiropractor for all those years, had 2 wellness centers in New York, 3 in San Diego. And we took care of pregnant moms wanting, looking to get pregnant, newborn babies and everything throughout. It was a very big family wellness practice, not so much of a pain relief. I saw very few people actually that came to us for pain and stuff like that. Of course, we helped them, but we were very niche in taking care of the moms and the kids and making sure that kids don't grow up with a lot of the same problems that their parents have. So we're all about education in health and wellness. I started D.R.E.A.M Wellness back in New York, back in 98, 99. And those wellness centers had chiropractic, massage, nutrition, empowerment coaching, yoga, Pilates, organic cooking classes, wellness workshops, you name it, we did it for the family. And, the centers were great. Every person that came into the office for any service would get a nervous system assessment to see how their body was adapting to stress and so on and so forth. So I had 23 amazing years of practice. When I moved out to Florida over the summer of 2021, I decided that I'm going to work on holding off on practice for as long as I can, focus on the book, doing online courses, educating moms in how to raise healthy children naturally. And so that's what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. And that's why you're here, because that's our passion. We have that same mission and vision for moms and families to be healthy and well. And it's an interesting place to be. So how did you get into that? What compelled you to go down that route? Did you have a history with chiropractic as a child or what?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, Melissa, because I never, ever would have thought I was going to be a chiropractor. In fact, growing up as a kid, I thought I was going to be a movie producer. Okay. And so, I always loved going to growing up in New York, when my dad would take me to Universal Studios in California. I loved watching movies and TV be made. That's what I wanted to do. Well, things didn't work out that way, unfortunately, because of finances and everything else. I had to go to a New York State school. I was paying for school myself. And so none of the schools in New York in the SUNY system, the State University of New York, had film programs. There was one that had a theater program. So I did that. So I went to that school and I just didn't love it. It didn't resonate with me, wasn't doing very well in school and didn't really know what I was going to do in life. What was I doing? I was spending time with my fraternity. I was working out in the gym. I was teaching people how to work out. I was being a personal trainer. Everything was about exercise and fitness. And somebody said to me, do you ever think about being a physical therapist? And I said, well, I don't really know much about physical therapy. And they explained to me, well, it's kind of like personal training, but to the next level. Back then it was a master's degree. They didn't have the doctorate degree, but it's really helping people physically overcome certain ailments and, using the body and everything. I'm like, well, that kind of resonates with me. That makes some sense. Except I was a little scared about the sciences because in high school, I did not do very well in science. But anyway, I switched over to pre-med to take all the physical therapy classes. And I was going to do the 2 years there and then go to Syracuse and get my master's. And then I went from being on the bad dean's list to the good dean's list because the body just really intrigued me when I started seeing in different contexts. But I wasn't as intrigued in physical therapy. It really didn't feel like it was my calling. And then my mom started dating this guy named Nat. And Nat was a retired police officer from New York, NYPD, tough guy and everything. And he says to me, do you ever think about being a chiropractor? I'm like, a chiropractor? I'm like, what do they do? Don't they crack backs or something like that? I can't even pronounce the word. I had no idea what it was. Thought they were like fake doctors, like so many other people thought and still think. I didn't have a lot of respect for it because I didn't know anything about it. And he says to me, Brian, honestly, I have no idea what they do. He's like, but my son just started chiropractic school at Life down in Marietta, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And he's different. I've never seen my son be so passionate about something in his life. I think you should talk to Steve. So I'm like, okay. So I call up Steve and we start having these conversations and he's talking to me about the body's innate healing power, recuperative powers of the body, not using drugs or surgery, to overcome these ailments and using the body's own innate wisdom. And just like, this resonates with me. This feels like I'm called to this. I was one of those kids that never did drugs, pushed or prescribed. I was always, like I said, treating my body like a temple, exercising, eating right. I was the person, I was eating salads for dinners and lunches before they were on the menu as a main course. They'd be like, we can't do that. I'd be like, can you just give me 3 side salads and throw a little bit of chicken in it? Now everywhere you go, chicken, salads are a main course. It wasn't the case. It wasn't an entree, 30 years ago. So the whole chiropractic philosophy resonated with me. My mom and his dad, Nat, was set to get married, and I was going to meet Steve at the wedding. And that week, Steve was going to take me to all these chiropractic offices and introduce me to the profession. Day and a half before the wedding, Nat, Steve's dad, drops dead suddenly. So I ended up meeting Steve at his dad's funeral instead of his dad's wedding.
Oh.
So it was horrible. So I, go up to Steve, give him a hug, his condolences, the condolences and all that. He's like, thank you. He's like, what time Monday should I pick you up? I'm like, what? He's like, we have plans. We're going. I'm like, okay, I'm in. And that week, was the week that made me a chiropractor as far as I was concerned. Went to life. When I finished up with college, I ended up living with Steve for 1.5 years. I was best man at his wedding. So it's like we were brothers by choice, not by chance at this point. Still one of my closest friends. And I learned so much good stuff from him. He might be, well, I shouldn't say, he might be moving to Florida. I don't know what happens. Maybe I just kind of, I don't hope the people in this timeline don't see that. But I didn't say his last name, so I think we're okay.
No, you're good.
We're good. I won't tag him on the podcast. But hopefully he comes to Florida because I'm going to need a great chiropractor adjusting me. But anyway, that's the story. And, Steve and I talked about how chiropractic, can really change people's lives from, working from above down, inside out. But really it's a whole lifestyle that goes into it, because Nat, Steve's dad, is a perfect example of someone who woke up that morning thinking that he was healthy, but he didn't finish the day. And how many people wake up in the morning thinking that they're healthy and they don't finish the day, or they end up with some type of terminal diagnosis or something else? Because healthy people don't just drop dead. Asymptomatic people do. So what we have to do is, we can't control everything. You could do everything right health-wise and still have a horrible thing happen. Don't get me wrong. But the whole idea of a wellness lifestyle is about putting the odds in your favor. And so that's kind of where we came up, the whole concept of D.R.E.A.M, which we'll get into, diet, relaxation, exercise, being an adjustment, mental wellness, the true 5 keys to a wellness lifestyle. And I don't want, Nat was 44 when he passed away, which is younger than I am right now. And so I don't want more parents, moms and dads, not watching their kids and grandkids grow up. But a lot of the issues that Nat had and others started when he was a kid, certain habits that you develop. So like I said earlier in the introduction, I would have parents coming in, they would have certain health issues. And I saw the early signs of it for the kids as well. And so we know that kids like to play follow the leader. So what I want to do is I want to encourage the parents to be the leader they want the kids to follow. So we know that a lot of parents will sacrifice everything for their kids' health and safety, but they don't do the right things all the time to help their kids, because they're going to mimic them. So if they're smoking, if they're drinking tons of alcohol, if they're eating junky food and doing everything else, their kids are going to watch it. You could tell your kids to eat an apple, but if you're eating all the junk, they're going to be like, well, you're eating this, and so on and so forth. So that's what I've dedicated my life towards. That's what my practices were all about for 23 years. It just got to a point where I could not reach the masses being in 3 offices. It's like, there's only so much I could do. So I had to write the book. I have to create online course. I had to create the D.R.E.A.M score, because this is going to be my way to get to millions and millions of moms and dads out there.
And they need you. They need you. So kudos to you, because there must have been some, I don't know that I would say grief, but that's a transition to go from having, the brick and mortar to, going online and having the book. But like you said, you realized that it was a better way to reach more people. So,
Melissa, you don't even know how tough it is, because, in one way, I'm so relieved that I don't deal with all the administrative stuff. But my kid is now taking Taekwondo. He's 5.5. And I sit there with all these other parents and the moms. 3 moms are telling me, they're looking for a chiropractor for their kid that they can trust, and a pregnancy, and all this stuff. And I live right around the corner from them. I have an adjusting table at my house, and I so badly want to just invite them to the house, and I'm going to try to find them a chiropractor. But I'm just like, I'm going to freaking have to adjust these people, but I don't want to open up a practice. But it's so hard. Like, it's easy talking about chiropractors have nothing to sell, but at the same time, it's hard not being able to serve them, because when it comes to the right chiropractor, you got to trust that individual. Unfortunately, we don't have that same trust that certain other professions have, where you've got to be referred to the chiropractor. You're not going to find them just on, on Google and not know anything about them. So yeah, it was a tough transition, and it still is tough. And we're going to see how long I could last.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that. So you have to keep me posted. But I love you. There were so many great nuggets in there, Brian. Like, I love how you talked about, for us, we started chiropractic when our baby was born because she had colic. And I thought my friend was crazy. I'm like, why would I take my newborn to a chiropractor? Like, I have the same mindset of, oh, it's cracking backs. It's if you've been in an accident. But that's what opened the door to our wellness journey, because it was the chiropractor who said, I think she's intolerant to dairy. Not the medical doctor, not the pediatrician we were going to, but the chiropractor. And so that opened my eyes to a whole, this whole new modality. And like you had testified to earlier, the body's innate ability to heal itself.
Yeah.
So it's powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I meet parents all over that do so many good things. They avoid all these toxins and stuff in their kids' bodies, but they're not actually doing things that are promoting health and wellness. And, having a fully functioning nervous system through proper spinal alignment is essential. Yes. And that's what chiropractors do. We're not back doctors. If the nervous system was in the hand, everyone would think we were hand doctors. But the nervous system is in the spine, it's in the back. So we help the integrity of the nervous system function, because you live your life through your nervous system. Every organ, muscle, gland, tissue, cell in the body knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, because the brain tells it so. And if we have interference to the nervous system caused by the inability to adapt to a stressor, chemical, physical, or emotional stressors, we go out of adjustment. And that puts us in sympathetic dominance, where we're in stress mode, creates all different types of health problems. So whether it's colic or ear infections for a baby, whether it's asthma, or if you're dealing with digestive issues or fertility issues, with adults, it's so many of these issues tie back to the nervous system being in stress mode. And so chiropractic is one extremely important profession that helps keep tension off of the nervous system. It's not the only thing that helps the nervous system, but it's an essential thing. You can't leave it out. When I talk about the 5 facets of wellness, the D.R.E.A.M, right? The A is about being in adjustment. That's being in balance mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and having optimal brain-body communication through the nervous system. So I say that the 5 facets, or the 5 keys to wellness, are like the 5 wheels of the car, right? The A is the steering wheel, right? You have to have the nervous system steering the wheels to go, the other tires to go in the right place. So it's not the most important. They're all important. They're all equally important, but you can't do it without being in adjustment. And chiropractors are certainly one of the key components to keeping people in adjustment.
And that's a great analogy. Do you feel, and then we can dive into the book, because I feel like we could do this for hours. Do you feel like chiropractic is a missing piece, because a lot of people have that mindset that it is only if you've been in an accident or cracking your back?
Absolutely. Yeah. And in fact, my book is not a chiropractic book, but it has a chapter on chiropractic. I mean, it's 450 pages, so I could get 15 to 20 pages on chiropractic. And every mom that has read that chapter of the book has asked me, where can I find a family wellness chiropractor? And it's great because I have nothing to sell, so that they could use me as a credible, trusted source. But yeah, I mean, less than 5% of the nervous system gives information about pain, right? In order for a nerve to elicit a pain response, it needs to have a special kind of receptor on it called a nociceptor, NOCI-ceptor, which responds to noxious stimuli, NOXIOS. So all that in words, but if 95% of the nerves in the body do not have nociceptors on them, that means that 95% of your human experience has nothing to do with how you feel in terms of pain, right? So we have to make sure that everything is functioning optimally before the pain is there. I taught neurology for several years when I was early on in practice, just because I totally geek out on neurology. I love that stuff. And I don't get to use it enough. Didn't get to use it enough. I mean, I use it in practice because that's what I was analyzing, but I get to talk about it enough. But I mean, we are professionals in neurology. And most people don't realize that. They think we're professionals in backs, and it's not about the back. Again, 5% of the nervous system gives information about pain. So we don't want to rely on that to determine whether you need a chiropractor. So any moms listening, you got to go and find a chiropractor that knows how to analyze the nervous system, not any doctor, not any chiropractor. If they don't specialize in pediatrics, or at least have a good pediatric practice, that's not the right office for you, because there are a lot of chiropractors that only specialize in like car accidents, sports injuries, falls and all that. And that's fine. You go to those people if you want when you're hurt. But if you actually want to have a chiropractor check your child's spine, and when I say check, doesn't mean just adjust just for the heck of it. We always check the people and make sure that they need an adjustment before we do an adjustment. We always do checks beforehand. And sometimes people need a lot of care. They need corrective care. And sometimes people just need lifestyle care, where maybe they come once a month, once every 6 months, but it's never based on symptoms. It's always based on lifestyle and how well they hold their adjustments. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, well, tell us about Dream Wellness. Tell us about your book. Tell us, I got to do the test and it was super exciting. So let's dive in.
Yeah. So I started writing this book about 12 to 13 years ago. I felt like I had a lot to say, but when I started writing the book, I'm like, am I going to get 40 or 50 pages out of here? I think it's going to be like a big brochure, right? And I'd be writing and writing. So I would go weeks where I would not stop writing. And then I would go 6 months without even writing a single page. Mm-hmm. And then I would go weeks with writing. And I did that for like 12, 13 years. And I always knew that the information I had was important, but it was never urgent. And then COVID happened. And I kept thinking to myself, I need to somehow finish this book. But my practice was busier than ever, mm-hmm. because the parents understood that this is going to help keep the immune system strong, that this is one thing they can do. And thank goodness, the Department of Homeland Security deemed chiropractic as an essential service, which was awesome.
Yes.
And so we were busy as anything and growing while everyone else was, not working and everything. So I had less and less time, but I needed to finish the book. And I think it was the end of March, beginning of April, somebody from a publishing company reaches out to me, and they'd researched me, and they said, I see you've done all this stuff. They did a ton of research on me, and they said, have you ever thought about writing a book? Because it looks like you have something to say.
Wow.
And I said, as a matter of fact, I have been. And so I signed on with them, and they helped me with the structure and the timing, and I got it done. It was supposed to be done in 6 months, but it ended up taking a year after that to finish it. And here we are, we've got an amazing book. But I think that part of the problem with the book also was, how was I going to fill all the content that was going to be usable? Because parents don't have a lot of time. Mm-hmm. They're busy, especially moms and dads that are two household incomes, they're both working, especially those. But even moms and dads that don't work in an office, still it's extremely busy with driving kids here and there and taking care of the house. So throughout the last decade, I've been asking all my practice members, I don't call them patients, I call them practice members. So word patient means to suffer. So I believe in what you speak about, you bring about. So my practice members, my participants, I would ask them all these questions about their lifestyle to find out, why are they constantly going out of adjustment? Like, what is going on? So I created this survey. It was like 80 to 90 questions. And it was basically all questions about lifestyle. So I didn't ask about heart rate, BMI, blood sugar, blood pressure. Didn't ask any questions like that. It's not that I don't care about it. It's that I want to know why. Mm-hmm. Why does someone have the blood pressure they have? Why do they have the height and weight that they have, the BMI? Why do they have the blood sugar they have? Why do they have strained relationships with their kids, their parents, or their spouses? Why? So I was going to be like a stalker, right? And people are like, don't use that word stalker. But it's kind of like, it's a very intrusive questionnaire, as you know. But it's one of those tests that as you take it, you're automatically be better just because you took it, because some of the questions are just so obvious. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to start doing this. But what happens is that I built the book with the DREAM score, so that when you take the DREAM score, you will get an instant report with a number and let you know what your score is from 1 to 100. It's going to tell us if your battery is charging or depleting, if you're doing more energy drainers or more energy gainers. Right? Where are you in your lifestyle? What is your current health status? It predicts where, it's basically an indicator of where you currently are in your health and a predictor of your children's. So it gives a ton of information. And then the report will actually walk you through the book. And this way, for the busy parents that don't have time to read a 450-page book, they can get through the book in an hour. So the survey itself will take about 20 to 25 minutes. How long did it take you to take?
Yeah, it was about 20 to 25.
Yeah. And so it's not too bad. It's educational just by taking it, and it's free. Yep. So anyone can take the DREAM score. And if you don't buy the book, that's fine. You'll at least still get the information. I still have some little tidbits in there. You'll know where you are. And if you do decide to get the book or the Kindle version, then you just run through it and then just, go through, make the changes, because moms and dads, we need quick wins. We don't have time necessarily to read 450 pages, although I want everyone to read all 450 pages because I'm told it's pretty funny. and there's some good stuff in it. So I've read it a few times myself. People like to ask me if I had hired a ghostwriter, whatever. I'm like, no. I'm like, I wrote every page myself. Hey, are you a ghostwriter?
No.
Yeah. Oh, you asked. Did you ask me that? Okay.
Oh gosh. Well, what I appreciated about it, because I did this test, is that, like you said, it kind of puts, it's the whole picture, right? So I think everybody from listening to this needs to go and take the test and get the book, of course, but it puts everything in the holistic picture. And there's some good reminders of, oh yeah, I was doing that, and then life happened. And so it kind of, brings awareness to some things that you could do and get those quick wins. And I love that you've also then connected the score and the report to where it is in the book. So, the perfect thing to do would be to look at your score, go find that section in the book, get those quick wins, and then read the whole book from start to finish a couple times, just for your kids' health and your health, right?
That's right. That's exactly right, Melissa. You nailed it. You should be my marketing person.
Okay, sounds good.
That's it. And I know that it will change lives. And then I invite people to take the dream score again. Do it every 2 weeks, every month, every 6 months.
That's a good idea.
I do it. I take the dream score every 3 months or so, not only because I want to test the platform, make sure everything's working, but because I want to see that I'm working, that I'm doing the right things. And sometimes I get a lower score than other times. I typically hover around, people have to assume that because I wrote the book and the dream score, I'm score 100. I've never gotten 100. I think the highest score I ever got was like a 95 or 96.
Okay.
I usually get about 93.
Okay. I was going to ask you.
Yeah. I think you got a 91 or something?
Yeah, I got a 91.
Yeah. And the first time I took it, I didn't even get in the 90s.
Okay.
So, which is crazy because I wrote it. What's that?
What's your lowest score been?
My lowest score was an 86.
Okay.
Yeah. And since then I've changed the calculations a little bit and stuff, but now it's firm. It was when I was in my testing and stuff like that. Sure. But yeah, I would consider myself in the upper 80s at certain times in my life.
Well, and it would be interesting too, like if people wanted to take it a step further, because I'm very much like you, why? You got to get curious and get to the heart of it, right? Mm-hmm. If you could coincide your scores with different events in life, because I know you've moved recently, we've moved recently. I wonder how, those life events, how, busier seasons, how that would impact things. That would be something to maybe take note of too.
Absolutely. Because, life and the health is dynamic. It's always changing. So one of the things that I say when you first, that's written there before you actually take the dream score is answer the questions as of your life now. Not what it was a week ago, not what you hope it's going to be in a week from now, but right now, because we want to see where you are now so you know what direction. It's hard to come up with dynamic answers when you're dealing with a static test, right? And that's why I have the arrows, and then of course, when you have multiple dream scores, you can actually see your direction. But when you have just one score, I still wanted to make it dynamic as much as possible. So absolutely, all different major events in life, take that dream score and get it going.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I will put a link in the show notes to where people can do the quiz and get the book and have access to you and all of that goodness, because, they're going to want to know now that we've talked about it, because it's awesome.
Absolutely. That's great.
Awesome. Is there anything else on the book that you want to share with us?
It's just got so much great information. And for all of your listeners, if anybody is interested in some of the bonuses that I've put together, they can go to dreamwellnessbook.com, which I know you said you'll put in the link there, but I'm giving every one of your listeners these amazing gifts if they want it. A guide to reading and understanding food packaging labels, vitamin and mineral deficiency guide to know about deficiencies and cravings, mastering self-love and finding peace and joy in you. And then this is like so popular. So many parents are loving this. Reduce screen time use for kids. It's an ebook and a digital detox for parents workbook. So that has become gold because with kids, a lot of them still being home, schooled at home, or they're getting off of that. They're used to being on devices and stuff like that. So I've come up with lots and lots of activities that families could do together that are fun for everybody. And, kind of talking about the pros and the cons of screens. They're not all bad, but we're just using them too much and too late in the evenings. So those resources are out there. So if you just go to dreamwellnessbook.com, put in your name and email address, you get all that as well as the dream score.
Thank you. What valuable information. Because all of those things have impacted our lives personally, and right now the screen time as well. So thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, well, I want to pick your brain a little bit since your specialty is stress and the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about the connection, how it works together? Yeah,
absolutely. So, and again, it's a big part, stress is first of all misunderstood. Stress is how the body reacts or doesn't react to a stressor, right? So stressors are those outside influences that give us stress if we don't adapt appropriately to it. So we all endure chemical, physical, and emotional stressors on a daily basis. So examples of chemical stressors might be foods that we eat that we might have an allergy to, maybe it's genetically modified, pesticides, pollution that we breathe in, drugs that we take, pushed or prescribed, all examples of chemical stressors. Sometimes we need to take the medication. I'm not saying not to take them, but know that that's a chemical stressor and that's going to affect your nervous system and everything else. Then you have emotional stressors, right? Those could be, work situations, school situations, family situations, relationships, finances, your team losing a game, like silly things could even be emotional stressors. I'm a big New York Giants fan. Sorry for you listeners out there, especially if you're a Cowboys or Eagles fan or Washington. But yes, I'm from New York, so I get a pass. And we're not doing too well again. But anyway, and if Evergreen, people listen to this in 5 years from now, they'll still hear, yeah, we're not doing too well this year. It's pretty accurate. But those are all examples of emotional stressors. We all endure emotional stressors. And then there's your typical physical stressors. That could be falls, accidents, talking on your phone like this, being on your device like this, your forward head posture, all of that, exercising improperly or not exercising at all. We all endure chemical, physical, and emotional stressors on a daily basis. If our body doesn't adapt to those stressors, we will go out of adjustment, right? And remember, I defined adjustment as being in balance mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally, and having optimal brain-body communication through the nervous system. So how do you do that? So how do you avoid those stressors wreaking havoc in your life? That's what living the dream lifestyle is about. And so D, like I said before, is for diet. Diet is everything that goes into your body from the outside world to the inside world. It's everything you eat, drink, taste, touch, smell, feel, hear. All the movies you watch and all the people you spend time with is just as much part of your diet as the food you consume. So obviously having a sugary, high-fat diet may not be so good for you, but also being around people that gossip or naysay and say you can't do this, just as malnutritious as the food, all right? And then R for relaxation is giving your body a chance to call time out, to reset, repair, regenerate, rejuvenate yourself. This is like sharpening your axe. Very, very important to refresh yourself on a regular basis. And in the book, there's lots and lots of tools on the D and on the R. Like each chapter, I call them all wellness wikis. So every section of D.R.E.A.M has about 20 wellness wikis in it, right? Then the E is for exercise. And I define that as any activity that requires physical or mental exertion. So we know whatever you do at the gym, if you're running with your stroller, going upstairs, those are all great exercises physically, but also doing crossword puzzles, reading stimulating books and magazines, keeping your mind sharp, extremely important. A, we already talked about what that was. And then M is for mental wellness. That's connecting your inner purpose and passion to your outer goals and tasks in all phases of life. Being right with your self-esteem, self-worth, self-values, and so on and so forth. So it's like putting the armor on your body throughout the day. So when you wake up in the morning, instead of saying, oh God, it's morning, you're like, oh God, it's morning. You're ready to go. You're excited. Then you got your affirmations, your prayer, and all this other stuff. And again, when you have a strong D.R.E.A.M, you should stay in adjustment. And then there's a lot of things to stay in adjustment also, like your footwear, how you're sleeping, what kind of pillows, kind of mattresses.
Purse, diaper bag.
What's that?
Purse, diaper bag, weight on the shoulders.
Oh, and I talk about all that in the book too. How to carry it, how to get your kid in and out of the car seat, how to nurse your baby. And even for grandparents, when grandparents are picking up the babies and holding them, obviously grandparents aren't nursing, but they're holding the babies. And what is the position? You're like this. Well, that's really good for your neck, right? So we think about all these postures that we have, especially new moms, first-time moms and dads. But moms, especially when you're nursing, if you're not side sleeping, and nursing while you're sleeping and all this. So there's so much information in the book. If people go to Amazon.com, they could actually look at the table of contents and see all the chapters. It's just, I don't know how I wrote so many things, but it's just like, I think it was divine, whatever. Just everything.
Yes, and you have so much experience and firsthand knowledge.
Right. So I'm just excited to have it out there. So basically then, the whole idea of the dream lifestyle is to neutralize and avoid the chemical, physical, and emotional stresses that wreak havoc on your nervous system. When your nervous system is under stress mode, right? I mentioned this before, you can end up in sympathetic dominance. So a lot of people have heard of fight or flight, right? And so the analogy that I use is like, okay, so if we're sitting in a room and, you're at rest, your body should be doing all the right things. Your heart should be beating 60 to 72 times per minute. Your lungs should open and close 10 to 12 times per minute, and all this other great stuff that happens, right? You don't need to think about these things. It's automatic. If it wasn't automatic, I don't know. The second I answer the phone, I drop dead, right?
Yeah.
Our body regulates, it knows exactly what to do. That's all part of innate intelligence. Now, if something happened, you heard a loud explosion in your room, what's going to happen? Your heart's going to beat faster, your pupils are going to dilate, your hair is going to stand up on end, you're going to breathe more shallow. And that is fight or flight. That is a normal physiological response to stress. So this way you can either fight an assailant or flee the situation. You need that. You need to get the blood to the muscles really quick. You need to get the lungs open and closed. You need to get the heart pumping blood. So you've got to do all that stuff. But what if you're at rest and you're in sympathetic dominance? And that's what I find happens with so many people. So one of the tests that I did in my office was called heart rate variability, HRV. Are you familiar with HRV? Awesome. It actually lets you know, are you stuck in sympathetic dominance? Are you in parasympathetic, where it's just in rest and digest, or are you well balanced? And so you don't want to be in any one of the extremes. And so I highly recommend, chiropractors and other practitioners that use something called surface EMG, thermography, heart rate variability. There's a couple of different instruments out there. Insight subluxation station is one of the ones that I use. And then there's a couple others out there. So you can always, for the pediatric, the parents out there that are looking for pediatric chiropractor, they actually have a special HRV that goes onto babies' earlobes, and that's how they measure it. So with adults, we do it with the fingers, but with babies, they do it on the earlobe. So, there's always a way, but people can reach out to me. I have places on my website where if they can't find a chiropractor that does it, or a health and wellness provider, I think that that's great, because obviously, stress on the nervous system is what is going to cause pretty much all dis-ease in the body, which will lead to disease. This is, of course, leaving out genetic and congenital issues or accidental traumas and stuff like that. It starts somewhere, and it's very often stress on the nervous system one way or the other.
Well, I think the interesting thing is a lot of the women that I work with, they don't identify it as stress, right? So I think we as a society have just gotten so used to living this crazy lifestyle. And I think that's one of the blessings that came out of COVID is everybody kind of had to step back and pause. But I think we've just gotten so used to this breakneck speed, and we're constantly under stress because, as you mentioned, we've got the environmental toxins, the foods, we're surrounded by them, people, social media, all the things. And so you have this baseline of stress that you don't identify as such. And then you've got these toxins coming from all those ways, and it's not a good scenario.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. So, it's one of those things where, moms, if you're listening, dads, if you're listening, I don't know if you're listening to this also, but it's time to just evaluate the amount of stress that you have in your life and then say, what am I going to do about it? You've got to do it. Whether you take the dream school, whether you read the book or not, you've got to do something, because everybody has stress in their life. The question is, are they adapting appropriately to it or not? The amount of work that a parent or a business owner, can get done is extraordinary if they're living the dream lifestyle. We can't avoid them all. And so a lot of those people that don't identify as stress, they may not be having negative effects of the stress, but sometimes they are, and they don't know physiologically. And that's where the heart rate variability comes in. So this way you're using objective testing, not subjective questioning. And that's a really great tool to see. You could identify however you want to identify, but you have a true physiology. And, you got to find out, is stress wreaking havoc on your life or not? And that's one way of doing it.
Yeah. And I would think, and this is just a guess, that over the last 18 months, everybody says increased.
Big time, big time. This fear, and especially if you're watching the news, there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's loss, whether it's a family member or a friend or finances, a job. There's so much that people have been dealing with over the past 18 months, 2 years, and it's going to keep going on. People are going to listen to this podcast for years to come. But the truth of the matter is, if people don't change their lifestyle now, when COVID is gone, there's going to be something else.
Yep.
And the problem is, you can't rely on the news and you can't rely on the legislature to give you the right actions and what to do, because what are they doing? They made you stay at home. They shut down the gyms, which we know is what's going to help, with obesity and all these other things, keep you active, right? They shut all the schools. So the kids are stressed out. They're not getting the companionship and the education. They're not getting any sports, not getting any activity. They're isolated, right? Adults are isolated. So, and then they reward, for getting the shot with free donuts and lottery tickets and stuff like that. Like, why aren't they mandating exercise?
Yep.
Where have you heard on the news that 68% of Americans, are dealing with at least one chronic disorder, such as obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, right? Where are you hearing that the majority, over 90% of the people that are passing away from COVID have one of those chronic health diseases? Where are you hearing about how to get rid of it?
Right.
Nowhere.
And a lot of times those are attributed to lifestyle.
Yes. Not 100% of the time, but maybe 90, 95%. Yep. Absolutely. And it's like, you can't medicate your life. You can't medicate yourself out of something created by your lifestyle. Something one of my friends, Dane Donahue, says. And it's so brilliant because you can take all the drugs in the world you want, but if you're still doing the same things over and over again, like Albert Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, the same way, expecting a different result. If it's not COVID, it'll be something else. And so you've got to pandemic proof your home by making good choices and putting the odds in your favor. And I always say that not everything, people say, well, everything in moderation. No, once you lick the lollipop of mediocrity, you'll suck forever. I say excessive goodness and a little bit of bad stuff. And so you've really got to be not too crazy where you can't enjoy life, but it's not balance of good and good stuff, and bad stuff, constructive and destructive. You got to have a lot of good stuff, and then when you do the bad stuff, you can limit how bad the bad stuff is. So for example, my kid wants to go to a campfire and the friends are bringing s'mores. Yeah. So what do you think we're going to do? Of course, we're going to have s'mores, but our friends know us. So they're going to have marshmallows that are organic and don't have high fructose corn syrup. They're going to have graham crackers that are not refined, no refined sugar, and chocolate that actually has cocoa in it. And it's not this mocklet stuff. That's not even chocolate anymore. So there are ways of making the bad stuff even a little bit better. So it's not about not enjoying life. There's something so empowering. I define discipline is when something would be deprivation for one, but empowerment for another. And so you find ways of being empowered by the choices that you're making, even if for the moment, you're giving up something, you should feel good about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's, what I love to teach the moms I work with is how to healthify things. Like you said, the s'mores, yes, you can still have them, but let's healthify it. Let's give you an upgrade so that you're still enjoying it, but you're not getting all of the junk and the side effects of, what the crap-filled stuff is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have deal breakers in the book that I always talk about, like no high fructose corn syrup, no hydrogenated oils, no food colorings.
Yes.
I mean, there are certain things that we will just not have no matter what.
Yes.
And that's in most of the junk food out there.
Yes.
And, in Halloween, what are you going to do with your kids and stuff like that? Well, we have the Switch Witch come.
Yep.
So I don't know if your moms that are listening, Switch Witch, best thing ever, right?
Amen.
Do you know about the Switch Witch? You use that?
Yeah, I sent it out to my email list before Halloween. So yeah.
Love it. Love it. So switching out the candy for something that a toy or something that the children want and they appreciate, and it empowers them because they know the Switch Witch is going to come and they're going to give all the sugar to Santa or something like that. I don't know, to make the gingerbread houses or whatever it is that they do with it. And it's just a wonderful fantasy time for everybody. And a good health educational opportunity for children.
And as your kids get older, cash works really well too. Just saying that for listeners. That's where we're at. We're at the cash stage.
My 5.5-year-old is getting there.
Okay. Know that that's an option.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love what you're doing. I love your message. I love your mission. I love how you have, really kind of simplified it, because I think health can be really overwhelming. It can feel exhausting. But I love your pillars. You've covered everything. I mean, kudos to you. And I see now the urgency that you felt of getting the book out with the timing of COVID, because this is what people need. This is what they need. They don't need the fear and they don't need the mandates and they need to be equipped and empowered. And I think that's where we missed the mark.
Big time, big time. And, it starts even with the schools. I'm going to start getting involved with my kids' school board and things like that. And I think it's important to meet with the legislators and to get involved politically. Doesn't matter what your political preference is. Right. Meet with Democrats, meet with Republicans, meet with, the libertarians, meet with whoever it is. But you got to let your state representatives and national, federal representatives know what's important. You can educate them. I can't tell you how many legislators, I have educated over the years.
Good for you.
And we have to do it because maybe one day they'll start making policies that help encourage health and wellness, as opposed to just coming up with more drugs and more drugs to combat the lifestyle created problems.
Well, and the fact with that too is that, Brian, they don't have your knowledge. They don't have your background. They don't know what you know. And so I feel called to, if we know something and we've had an experience, it's our responsibility to share it, because we need each other. We need each other's backgrounds. We need each other's stories. And that's how the world gets better, right? Is people sharing their knowledge and supporting and equipping and empowering and helping each other, not tearing each other down and degrading and fighting because you have a different perspective.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, people ask me, what is my dream with the book? If I could have anything, what would be success for my book? That would be the concepts and the content of it being a White House initiative, where a first lady or first gentleman, whoever's president, you know, like Nancy Reagan had Just Say No, and we know Michelle Obama, you know, she worked with, and she got a lot of heat for it because dealing with obesity and fitness and stuff like that, you know, there's shaming and stuff like that. It's a third rail type of thing. But I would love to see the Dream Lifestyle become a White House initiative. I would make my entire company a nonprofit if it would go there. I don't have to make a penny off of it. If every parent, if every child, if every person on the planet knew where health actually comes from and how to create health, what we call salutogenesis, we would have a different country. We would have a different world. So that's my dream. That's my goal, one day to get this into the White House.
So how can we make that happen?
Well, I think a lot of people buying the book will help, but you know, I had a lot of connections politically when I was in California, and burned a lot of those bridges when I moved, but still have quite a few of them. As a chiropractor, I took care of lots of senators, assembly members, mayors, you know, all political parties, Democrat, and I was president of the California Chiropractic Association. So I was very visible up in Sacramento at the Capitol. And I've also done a lot of federal education. I've worked with a lot of legislators, educating them on policy and stuff over the years. So I think that I'm actually closer than the average person would be, because I have a lot of connections, and I just need to get it in the hands of the right person or the right people. The problem is right now, the political environment is so divisive and so separate that the two sides don't even want to talk to each other. So there's got to be a little stability there, because do I want it to come through the hands of a Republican, through a Democrat, or bipartisan obviously is the key. That's the best way to do it. And so I'm looking for the right window of opportunity to get it into their hands, and I will. I know in some way, shape, or form, it will get into the hands of the politicians. Whether it's going to make an impact or not, that I don't know, but I will get it in their hands.
And that's your part, right? Like, we can only do our part.
That's right. That's exactly right. We can only do our part. So that's where I'm at. So if any of your moms listening have any good political connections, let me know. Hit me up at brian@dreamwellness.com and let me know who you know, and let's get it in their hands.
Yes, I would love nothing more than to see that happen. So
awesome.
Awesome. Do you have any parting words before we close? Like I said, I feel like we could talk about this for hours because it's so important.
We could talk about it for hours, and I could just go on and on and on. I just want to encourage, you know, parents to realize that, you know, you do have control over so much of what goes on in your life. Again, like I said earlier, be the leader that you want your kids to follow. Live by choice, not by chance. And don't blame your woes in life on bad luck, bad germs, and bad genes. Understand that the choices you make will determine your future and your destiny. So I say move forward and live your dream every day.
I love it. I love it. And think of what an impact that can make.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brian. It's been awesome having you here. I loved hearing your story, loved hearing more about the book. Everybody go online, take the assessment, get your copy. We'll put the link in the show notes, and you can connect with Dr. Brian there as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. You have an awesome day and enjoy